After 60, the conversation around health must change because the body itself has changed. For many years, movement was about burning energy, staying slim, or keeping the heart active. Walking fit perfectly into that idea. It was simple, familiar, and accessible. But as the body ages, the priority quietly shifts from movement to preservation. The real question is no longer how far you can go, but how well your body can support you while you move. Walking keeps you active, yes, but it does not fully protect the systems that aging challenges first: strength, balance, and structural stability. These are the foundations of independence, and once they weaken, even the best walking habit cannot compensate. Muscle strength after 60 is not a luxury, it is survival biology. Muscles are not just for lifting objects or climbing stairs, they act as shock absorbers for joints, stabilizers for posture, and metabolic partners for bones and blood sugar regulation. Walking uses muscles, but only at a very low threshold. The body adapts to that low demand by slowly reducing muscle mass, especially in the thighs, hips, and core. This is why many people who walk every day still struggle to stand up from a chair, climb steps, or regain balance after a stumble. The issue is not laziness or lack of effort, it is that walking does not ask muscles to stay strong. Balance follows a similar pattern. Balance is not something you either have or lose overnight. It is a skill maintained by constant communication between the brain, the inner ear, the eyes, and the muscles of the feet and legs. Walking moves you forward in a predictable pattern, which means the nervous system receives very little challenge. Over time, those pathways grow quiet. When an unexpected movement happens, a slip, a sudden turn, uneven ground, the body reacts too slowly. This is why falls become one of the greatest risks after 60, even for people who walk regularly. Then there's independence, the quiet goal behind every health decision we make as we age. Independence is the ability to rise, turn, reach, and steady oneself without fear. It is the confidence to move through daily life without hesitation. Exercises that involve controlled resistance, balance challenges, and joint activation send strong signals to the body that these abilities are still required. They tell the nervous system to stay alert, the muscles to stay engaged, and the joints to stay nourished. Walking alone does not send these signals clearly enough. This is why smarter movement matters more than more movement. Targeted exercises respect the reality of an aging body rather than ignoring it. They work with biology instead of relying on habit. When strength and balance are preserved, walking itself becomes safer and more enjoyable. Health after 60 is not about replacing walking, but about understanding its limits and filling the gaps with intention, so the body remains capable, steady, and self-reliant in the years that follow. Aging is often described as a slow loss, but biologically, it is more accurate to describe it as a process of adaptation. The body is constantly responding to the signals it receives, adjusting its structure and function to match the demands placed upon it. After 60, those signals tend to become quieter, not because the body is incapable, but because modern life asks less of it. Elevators replace stairs, chairs replace squatting, and caution replaces challenge. Over time, the body interprets this as a message that strength, speed, and balance are no longer necessary. The result is not failure, but efficiency in the wrong direction. Muscles are a powerful example of this adaptive nature. They are metabolically expensive tissue, and the body will not maintain them unless they are clearly needed. When muscles are not challenged, they shrink. But what truly fades is not just size, it is activation. The brain sends fewer signals, motor units fire less often, and movements that once felt automatic begin to require effort. This is why weakness after 60 can feel sudden, even though it has been developing quietly for years. The good news is that this process is reversible because the same adaptability that allows muscles to weaken also allows them to strengthen when given the right stimulus. The nervous system adapts just as profoundly. Balance, coordination, and reaction time depend on constant feedback between the brain and the body. When that feedback is underused, the brain begins to prioritize other functions. This is not a flaw, it is a survival strategy. But when intentional movement is reintroduced, especially movements that challenge stability and control, the nervous system responds with surprising speed. New connections form, old pathways reactivate, and confidence begins to return. This is why people often feel steadier within weeks of practicing balance-focused exercises, even if they believed it was too late to improve. Joints, too, are shaped by adaptation. They do not thrive on rest alone, nor on excessive impact. They require movement through their natural range to receive nutrients and maintain smooth surfaces. Without this, stiffness increases and discomfort becomes common. Gentle, intentional exercise restores circulation to joint tissues, reduces inflammation, and improves mobility. The body interprets this movement as a sign that these joints are still needed, and it responds accordingly. What often limits people after 60 is not physical inability, but expectation. When decline is assumed to be normal, effort becomes cautious, movement becomes minimal, and adaptation follows that lowered standard. But when the mindset shifts from protection to participation, the body is given permission to respond differently. Improvement does not require intensity, only clarity of purpose. Aging, then, is not a one-way descent, but a conversation between the body and the life it is living. When that conversation includes simple, consistent challenges, the body answers with strength, coordination, and renewed capability, proving that adaptation does not stop with age, it simply waits for a reason to continue. True health after 60 is rarely the result of one perfect habit. It emerges when multiple small choices begin to support one another, creating a system that works in harmony rather than isolation. Exercise alone cannot carry the full weight of healthy aging, just as nutrition alone cannot restore strength without movement. The body functions as an integrated whole, and when its needs are met collectively, the results feel natural rather than forced. This is why alignment matters more than effort. When exercise, diet, daily activity, rest, and emotional well-being move in the same direction, the body no longer feels like something that must be managed, but something that cooperates. Intentional exercise provides the signal for change, but nutrition provides the materials. After 60, the body becomes less forgiving of nutritional neglect. Muscles need adequate protein to repair and maintain their structure. Bones rely on minerals and vitamin D to stay resilient. The brain depends on healthy fats and micronutrients to regulate mood, focus, and coordination. Without these, even the best exercise routine yields limited results. When nourishment is consistent and balanced, recovery improves, energy stabilizes, and movement feels less taxing. Food becomes a form of support rather than control. Daily light movement bridges the gap between structured exercise sessions. Aging bodies respond poorly to long periods of inactivity. Sitting for hours slows circulation, stiffens joints, and dulls neural input. Gentle movement throughout the day keeps tissues hydrated and signals the nervous system to remain engaged. Simple actions like stretching, standing regularly, or slow breathing reset the system without strain. These moments may seem insignificant, but they compound quietly, reinforcing the benefits of more focused exercise. Lifestyle habits shape how effectively the body adapts. Sleep is where tissues repair and hormones rebalance. Without sufficient rest, strength gains stall and inflammation rises. Exposure to natural light supports circadian rhythms, which influence energy, appetite, and mood. Social interaction protects cognitive health and reduces stress, which otherwise interferes with healing. Even posture and breathing patterns influence how the body distributes tension and effort. When lifestyle habits are supportive, exercise and nutrition work more efficiently, requiring less effort for greater benefit. Alignment also includes emotional and mental well-being. Stress signals the body to conserve resources, while calm encourages restoration. When routines feel punishing or overwhelming, adherence fades. When they feel supportive and meaningful, consistency becomes effortless. This is especially important after 60, when the goal shifts from transformation to sustainability. Health is no longer something to chase, but something to cultivate. When these elements align, the body begins to respond in subtle but profound ways. Movements feel smoother, recovery feels quicker, and energy becomes more predictable. The system works not because any one habit is perfect, but because all of them are cooperating, allowing the body to age with strength, clarity, and a sense of balance that feels deeply human. After 60, the role of nutrition changes in a way that many people do not immediately recognize. In earlier years, food was often framed around control, controlling weight, calories, or appearance. But as the body ages, nutrition becomes less about limitation and more about support. The aging body is still capable of repair, adaptation, and strength, but it requires the right building blocks to do so. Without adequate nourishment, even the most thoughtful exercise routine cannot fully protect muscles, bones, and the nervous system. Food becomes the quiet partner in every movement, recovery, and moment of energy. Protein takes on a central role during this stage of life. Muscles naturally become less responsive to protein signals as we age, a process known as anabolic resistance. This does not mean muscles stop growing or repairing, but it does mean they need clearer signals. Consistent protein intake throughout the day helps preserve muscle tissue, supports balance, and reduces the risk of frailty. Protein is not about bulking or bodybuilding, it is about maintaining the strength required for daily life. When muscles are nourished, they respond better to even gentle exercise. Hydration is another overlooked pillar of nutrition after 60. The sensation of thirst becomes less reliable with age, yet water remains essential for circulation, joint lubrication, digestion, and temperature regulation. Dehydration often shows up not as thirst, but as fatigue, stiffness, or dizziness. Adequate fluid intake supports blood flow to the brain and muscles, making movement safer and recovery smoother. Hydration works quietly in the background, but its absence is felt quickly. Micronutrients also play a vital role in healthy aging. Minerals like calcium and magnesium support bone strength and muscle function. Vitamins from whole foods help regulate inflammation and immune health. Healthy fats nourish the brain, support hormone balance, and reduce joint discomfort. This kind of nutrition is not about superfoods or extremes. It is about variety, consistency, and respect for the body's changing needs. Perhaps the most important shift is psychological. When food is viewed as nourishment rather than restriction, eating becomes an act of care rather than guilt. Stress around food can interfere with digestion and nutrient absorption, creating a cycle of imbalance. A calm, intentional approach to eating supports both physical and mental health. Meals become opportunities to refuel, recover, and prepare the body for movement and rest. When nutrition is approached as restoration rather than control, the body responds with greater resilience. Energy becomes more stable, recovery improves, and exercise feels less draining. In this way, food becomes not just fuel, but a form of daily reinforcement that allows the body to remain strong, steady, and responsive as the years continue to unfold. Mindset quietly shapes every outcome in health, especially after 60. Long before muscles weaken or joints stiffen, beliefs begin to set limits on what feels possible. Many people absorb the idea that aging automatically means decline, pain, and restriction. These ideas are rarely questioned, yet the body listens to them closely. When improvement is not expected, effort becomes cautious, movement becomes minimal, and the nervous system responds by reducing capacity. This is not a failure of willpower, but a natural response to perceived threats and limitation. The brain's primary role is protection. If it believes the body is fragile, it will limit movement to avoid harm. This often shows up as stiffness, hesitation, or fear of falling. Over time, these protective patterns become habits, reinforcing the belief that the body is no longer capable. But the brain is also highly adaptable. When it receives consistent evidence that movement is safe and beneficial, it adjusts its predictions. Confidence begins to replace caution, and capability slowly returns. Belief does not override biology, but it influences how biology is expressed. When a person approaches movement with curiosity instead of fear, muscles activate more fully and coordination improves. When challenges are seen as manageable rather than dangerous, the nervous system allows greater range and strength. This is why two people of the same age and physical condition can experience movement so differently. The difference is often not the body itself, but the expectations carried within it. Mindset also affects consistency. Health habits built on punishment rarely last. After 60, motivation rooted in fear of decline leads to short bursts of effort followed by withdrawal. In contrast, motivation grounded in possibility encourages patience and sustainability. When exercise is viewed as a way to support daily life rather than to fix a problem, it becomes easier to maintain. Small improvements are noticed and valued, reinforcing the belief that progress is still possible. A positive mindset does not mean ignoring discomfort or denying limitations. It means interpreting them accurately. Discomfort becomes information rather than a warning to stop. Limitations become starting points rather than final boundaries. This perspective allows adjustments instead of abandonment. It encourages listening to the body without surrendering to it. Over time, this dialogue builds trust between mind and body, which is essential for confident movement. The most powerful shift occurs when aging is no longer seen as something to fight, but something to work with. The body is not trying to fail, it is responding to the signals it receives. When those signals include patience, belief, and gentle challenge, the response is often stronger than expected. In this way, mindset becomes more than a mental attitude. It becomes a physiological influence, shaping how muscles fire, how balance is maintained, and how energy is expressed, allowing strength and resilience to remain active parts of life well beyond 60.